Distillers don't seem to make much in the way of rot gut or grog or plonk or moonshine. They all seem to be aiming at the top end of the market, what the advertising execs call fancy schmancy. Now, we make enough whiskey here, and we've been talking about it for years, that most of us know what a single malt is and what it means, you know, when your nips are peaty. But gin making is also becoming quite popular here. You see gin bottles around with the local bars, from McHenry's and Four Pillars and 40 Spotted. So I want to be educated in the ways of gin, especially the new fancy schmancy one, Sloe Gin. Rex Burdon from Nonesuch Distillery has been brewing up some sloe gin. 'Tis the season, or so I'm told. Let's find out what it is and how to tell a good one from a bad one. Rex, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joel. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, first thing, can you define what gin is?
Gin, in its true definition, Joel, is an exquisitely flavoured vodka.
Right, and is there a defined set of ingredients, or can you just put any old herb in it and still call it gin?
No, look, there is a defined ingredient, and that's where gin gets its name from. We've got to use juniper. If gin isn't predominantly flavoured and doesn't predominantly smell of juniper, then you can't call it gin. You've got something else, you've probably got a nice drink and you've got a flavoured vodka, but you can't call it gin.
Right.
So the juniper is the most important part, yeah.
And what else?
Then from there, it's a matter of the distiller's art coming into play to select what other botanicals, and it must be flavoured by plant material. We could decide that, you know, squid ink is the greatest flavour that you can add to anything, but you can't add it to gin. It needs to be botanicals, so the distiller's art is to select those plants and spices and herbs, get those into a recipe in the proportions that give you a lovely mouthfeel and a beautiful aftertaste and that lingering warmth that you want from a good quality gin.
So what are the traditional botanicals to go into gin besides juniper? I understand coriander seed is often part of the mix.
Coriander seed is probably, in most gins, right up there, it being the second most used probably to the juniper. We certainly use coriander in our gin, in our dry gin. We have wound it back a little bit. People either love or hate juniper. Love or hate coriander. There's no middle ground when it comes to coriander.
There's a certain number of people to whom it tastes like soap, apparently. It's a genetic thing.
Absolutely. And, of course, we've got licorice, we've got citrus in there. Lemon and orange peel have always been part of the gin recipes, but Australian lemon myrtle is a great substitute. That is just absolutely magic. And, of course, it saves us distillers standing there peeling quite as many lemons, of course.
Is there not a place where you can just buy lemon peel? Do you actually have to do kitchen prep for your gin?
There are always shortcuts, Joel, but usually what you find is you get caught out at the end.
It tastes like a shortcut.
Yeah, it does. Lemon peel and orange peel, if you buy it already done and dried, will bring the aroma through okay. But that white pith underneath the thin peel is what you don't want. And of course, if it's being commercially peeled, it's being done by a machine, you're going to get that pith.
You're going to get pith and not
add a bitterness.
And not the zest. You just want zest.
Just the zest, absolutely.
And I imagine that's really expensive to buy, zest.
Yeah, look, it's far better to go down and buy the lemons. You know they're fresh. Buy the oranges. You know they're fresh. And stand there with your nice sharp peeler and have a chat across the table while you're doing that. And of course, there are some distilleries that you mentioned, a couple where they actually use the entire orange, which is a step away from what the British have always done and what most of us have followed. But there's certainly situations in both the UK and here where the entire orange will go in.
Now, sloe gin is the one that I'm seeing more and more, this red gin. What is going into sloe gin?
Well, sloe gin is basically a dry gin or a classic dry gin infused with sloes over time, so for up to 12 months in our case, to produce that drink that's beautiful and red. It brings through all the botanicals that are in the gin and the tartness of the sloes. Now, this sloe is a fruit to your stone fruit related to plums and cherries, that same genus of plants.
But it's just a tiny one, I guess, is it?
It's a little tiny one, not on average, not any bigger than probably your ring finger's fingernail.
Right.
And
Yep.
absolutely tart. When they're growing on the blackthorn tree, which is what they're the fruit of, and you pop one in your mouth, I'm pretty sure that most people only do that once.
What do they taste like raw?
They actually make a lemon a really attractive thing. After you've put a sloe in your mouth and sucked the juice out of that, you would be happy to suck the juice out of a lemon just to get something a little sweeter.
You're retrieving your lips from the back of your throat for the next 5 minutes, are you?
Yeah, look, your lips head away from your mouth, your tongue goes down the back of your throat looking for moisture, and your cheeks sort of cave in a bit.
And yet it offers something great to gin. What does it add to the gin?
What it adds to the gin, it's somewhere in that infusion process, there's a reaction where the colour is brought out of the skin, so that gives us the beautiful crimson of the finished product. There is obviously some residual sugar in the skin of these things, so that comes through. And of course, you've got all the botanicals of the gin. And the real art of the sloe gin is to give it time, let it do its thing naturally without trying to hasten it, and let all that juice come out of those sloes. That'll bring your alcohol content down in your gin. So your sloe gin will always be bottled at a lower alcohol percentage than a dry gin.
Yep.
And the time to bottle it is when all those things are nicely balanced. The colour, the tartness of the sloe's gone down due to the process of the gin, and you've got this beautiful, sweeter drink than a dry gin.
Where do you get sloe berries from in Tasmania?
Well, they were brought out here, thankfully, in the days before IO security, when the very early settlers came out, and not so much in the south of the state. The south sort of topped the majority of the convicts, obviously, and a lot of the more moneyed settlers settled in the north. They had bigger grants, they had bigger properties, and I guess wanted to recreate those wonderful hedgerows that you see all across the
Yep.
Those hedgerows are predominantly hawthorn and blackthorn. The two bushes plant together give you more green coverage over the course of a year.
Yep.
The blackthorn has a huge, nasty, needle-sharp thorn on it.
I think I know the exact ones you mean.
Yeah, and you'll only brush up against that once or twice. Stock learn very quickly not to brush up against it. And so it kept their stock in. When they had free convict labour, it was pretty easy to get beautiful stone walls made and get fencing done. When you sort of had to pay ex-convicts to build your fences and walls, it was suddenly more efficient to plant a hedgerow.
Rex Burdon, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap it up there. It's been fascinating. Thank you for being with us.
Anytime, Joel, anytime at all.